Welcome to another installment of Instant Grace, a mini version of Gracearchy with Jim Babka. I'm Jim Babka. The Electoral College promotes diversity. Now, here's what I mean. Let's start off with a thought experiment. Imagine you live in America where California makes all the decisions. I mean, their governor, their legislature, their bureaucrats, their Supreme Court, whatever it is that they decide there is now the law of the entire land. Now, if you're in California, you say, great, but you're already in California. And if you're outside of California, you're probably less likely to say great because you chose to be somewhere else. You didn't choose the sunny beaches of Southern California, for example. And I know not even everyone in California is happy with this. There are people who live in the northern part of the state that actively talk about having a secession movement where they create their own state. They call it the State of Jefferson in one instance. So this illustrates an important issue about the Electoral College in that it promotes diversity. It promotes a very specific kind of diversity, by the way. It promotes a diversity of being able to choose a more suburban, country, or rural type of environment as opposed to having to be in the big cities. You see, if we did our presidential election strictly on the basis of massive Democratic vote, we might have a situation like people in Northern California recognize, or people in Western New York represent. They understand that the city, New York City, has an overarching dominant ability to kind of dominate them. And so their way of life, they fight to try to, maybe preserve that and lose ground in so doing. This has been in the character of the country all along to kind of recognize this rural divide and recognize the places that had the greatest population centers should not be running the entire show. James Madison and Edmund Randolph were both Virginians, and Virginia was basically the California of the founding era. It was the big dominant state commercially and population wise. And despite the fact that that was the case, to make the Constitution happen, they agreed to various compromises, including a very famous one called the Virginia Plan. And that plan actually said, yeah, we will have a legislature based on population, but we'll also have a second one that is based on states being able to represent themselves. And in an era where federal government could not directly tax its citizens, and states would have had to pick up the bill for deficit spending, this was actually a really profound way to promote the type of diversity and make sure that no state could dominate all of the others. No state could live at the expense of the others, where there's some money coming in and then they're all able to trade it around, which, by the way, they frequently do. And the reason they're able to do is that they passed the 16th Amendment and 17th Amendment, basically ending that apportionment system. But again, just like that Virginia plan, the Electoral College does something very similar. It says it recognizes that we don't want any one state dominating the presidential race either. We don't want the urban areas being able to set the tone for everything else. And so if you say, I'm for diversity, then you should say, I'm for the Electoral College. The reason that we start talking about the Electoral College frequently has something more to do with where we're at with the Clinton race in 2016 or the Gore race in 2000. And I'm going to suggest to you that that's kind of short-term thinking, that those two races don't define everything and that there were other issues probably at stake. The Electoral College wasn't really your problem. In those instances, maybe you could have had a better candidate. Definitely true in 2016. Most people were dissatisfied with the candidates they had available to them. And in both of those races, there was a significant third party presence that helped represent that. And it is a fundamental flaw in our system, our first past the post, winner takes all system, that we don't have more diversity and choice at the top of the ballot in federal races. And there's a lot of things about our law that are engineered and rigged to make sure that that's the case. So rigging one more thing to get the outcome you want isn't really the solution here. And it's the anti-diversity solution. But maybe I still haven't persuaded you yet. So let me offer one more perspective. And that is that right now, because of the Electoral College, a handful of states are battleground states. And what that means is the campaigns are going to spend the overwhelming amount of their limited budget on those states, trying to influence the outcome in those places, because some states are decided before it's even started. So that means they're able to target. But if you said, no, we're going to make it the whole country, then that means that every mailbox, every television set, every computer, every handheld device, every face to face relationship, every town, city, media market, the whole kit and caboodle is now a battleground. And that is a lot more expensive. So if you think that there's too much money in politics now, wait until you make it so that every one of those places is now a battleground. And we aren't just limiting it to a handful of states and media markets. Diversity, in its truest sense, is a graceful concept. The idea that you can live the way that you want to live, even if other people wouldn't choose that, or even if they don't think it's good for you, that you can still, as an adult, harming no one else, can pursue your own happiness. That's a uniquely American idea. That's a graceful idea. And removing the Electoral College would diminish that.